Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for my continued followers, I want to tell you that I appreciate you. And please share this commentary with somebody you think will find it informative. And man, after the Jonathan Majors conviction and incident, we've got to talk about this OnlyFans model, Courtney Clenney, and her being accused of murdering her boyfriend, Christian Obumseli. So there's a race narrative to this. Courtney Clenney, 27 years old, white female, who was an IG and OnlyFans model, who was making over $100,000 a month. And Christian Obumseli is a Nigerian-born guy, black guy, and they met in Texas. And subsequently, they decided to have a relationship. In today's time, in 2023, 2024, interracial relationships that are at an all-time high. And as a middle-aged African-American man, these interracial dynamics that are taking place and how you're seeing an overwhelming abundance of interracial relationships and kids is somewhat stunning and interesting that the world has walked its way into this narrative that Dr. Martin Luther King preached about from the 1960s about integration versus segregation. And as I find it a little bit shocking and puzzling that you have, and definitely due to rap music, you have a ton of white males, young white males that want to be rappers as a result of Eminem, Beastie Boys, and you have a plethora of white females, young white females that are dating black and or African American men in today's time. When I went to college in the mid-'80s, you didn't see that as much. And then I have 3 children that are 24, 25, and 28, and that you see these interracial dynamics taking place. And I've even dated outside of my race. I've dated white women and other ethnicities, so I have no problem with the integration of other races commingling. But when people get in trouble, the white-black narrative does come into play. And just ask Jonathan Majors, who was trying to run away from his girlfriend and still got convicted for harassment and 2 misdemeanor charges in New York, and it has destroyed his career. But this Courtney Clenney case is very interesting. She dated this gentleman for a couple of years. 27 years old. She was making a lot of money on the internet, social media, which is now the behemoth that it has become. You don't need the typical move to Hollywood or be interviewed on the big 4 networks, NBC, ABC, CBS, or Fox, to garner fame. Anybody can be famous overnight. Social media and the internet today is a push of a button to where you can become famous and or infamous. And this young lady, Courtney Clenney, was making a ton of money. She met this African Nigerian guy, Christian Obumseli, who had the nickname Toby. That's awfully ironic and interesting, especially for people that are black. Toby was a name that was used during the Roots TV series back in the 70s as a slave, and he was from Nigeria, and his nickname was Toby. So there's a small irony in that. And then he's dating this white young lady. They're around the same age, from Texas. She started garnering a lot of attention on the internet, and then they eventually moved to Miami. And she's been accused of stabbing and murdering this black man. But the interesting part of this, as a middle-aged black man and who has 3 black children in today's time, and as I told you, the narrative for black and white integration has been great. Black males still have to be cognizant of how they handle having relationships with women outside of their race, especially white women, because there's this old mantra that our elders, our grandmothers, our uncles, our great uncles, our grandfathers have always told us to be careful having interracial relationships with white women in America. And some of this seems like it's still playing out today, where black males are ending up castigated if there's an altercation between white and black issues. And black men seem to lose, definitely in the court of law, just as Jonathan Majors. As soon as he lost his case, he went right back to a black woman, Megan Good. Courtney had her background. She had two DWIs previously. She had addiction issues and anger issues, it looks like. Her and Christian had even gone to Vegas a year or 2 ago, and they ended up both getting arrested, and they were going to be potentially charged with DV, domestic violence. They had a fight out there, but those charges got dropped. There had been an ongoing cycle of them not getting along and having a volatile relationship. And now, as this case is picking up steam and headed to court, there's been several videos of them arguing. I don't know if there was a third party videotaping it, but there was an argument that was videotaped on an elevator where she continued to hit him repeatedly and he didn't do anything. He tried to get her to stop. There was an argument inside their condo in Miami that she rented or owned. There was about $10,000 a month. It seemed like that she was the breadwinner and he was going along for the ride. And maybe he was helping her, but that also shows, if I was his father, that that's not a good scenario, that you should have your own place, be your own provider, and not be at the mercy of anybody, a black woman and or a white woman. But he was following her and helping her with her content creation. But she was very insecure. They both drank a little bit, and I think she drank a lot, and they did some recreational drugs. They even mentioned about doing cocaine, and evidently, no matter how much she was making on the outside of her moral fabric with Instagram and OnlyFans, her internal moral fabric was in chaos. And she had a tendency to want to take this out on Christian. And he tried to be there for it in all appearances with these video coverages. And I'm not trying to support him just because he was black and she's white. But according to the videos, it looks like that she was the aggressor. There was an incident where she split his lip. There was another incident where she hit him over the head with a bottle, locked him out of the apartment. He felt that he had a concussion and was not feeling well. There were several incidences where they got into physical altercations and fights. And in her defense, and to the detriment of Christian, and I don't know what his relationship was with, he had a mother and father in Dallas, came from a solid family, but if you're in a toxic relationship that's verbally and physically abusive, you should leave it. That's what Jonathan Majors didn't do. If you see the signs and symptoms, people will generally show you. I always go with the 60-day or 90-day time limit, and you can get to know a person's idiosyncrasies, their oddities. Will they fit into what you're trying to do in life? And evidently most people, and definitely young people, because they just think for today, have a tendency to ignore these telltale signs that could lead to some kind of harmful or disastrous situation in their relationship. And their relationship was full of chaos and disruption, full of it. And there's even video coverage of it. And it seems as if she had a little bit of a presumption, being a white female and dating this black guy, that she could talk to him any kind of way. There's even video coverage of her using the N-word against him. She accused him several times of cheating on her. And, you know, black men have this stereotype that we are cheaters and want multiple women. So she bought into that framework, and she thought he was dating her friend. He said he was not. There's video coverage in their apartment and condo in Miami where she was hitting him repeatedly. But the problem that I have with him is that he didn't leave. You should go, if you in a tumultuous relationship, you should leave faster than you came. That's what Jonathan Majors didn't do. And I'm telling you this as a middle-aged black man, especially if you're in an interracial relationship, and especially with a white woman. You should leave faster than you come. And he didn't leave. He tried to rationalize with her. And as I told you, she had addiction issues. She had insecurity issues. She had a narcissistic personality. And she had trust issues. And with him seeing all that, he should have got out of there quick, fast, in a hurry. And his circumstance ended up worse than Jonathan Majors. He ended up dying as a result of this chaos. Now, Jonathan Majors may feel that he is living life and has died from a media standpoint. You could physically die and you could spiritually die. And I think Christian or Toby and Jonathan Majors had a death sentence. Jonathan Majors died as far as character assassination across this country and this nation. And Christian died physically as a result of her stabbing him. And of course, her defense was, in this final argument, that she threw a knife at him and didn't physically puncture and stab him. And of course, the evidence has come back through the coroner's office that there was no way that she could have thrown a knife and stabbed him and killed him, but that she physically, in a downward spiral, stabbed a young man. And I think it was his subclavian artery that bled out, and he ended up dying. So this is a measuring stick when we talk about manifesting our truth in the right direction, doing the right thing. If you see that you're in a tempered, hot, chaotic relationship, get out of it. There are 360 million people in America, 340, 360. There are tons of women in this world. If the relationship doesn't work, get out of it and go find somebody else. Be in tune with yourself. Especially in your early 20s, you have an entire life to live and you don't know what direction God has in store for you. He should have never stayed. Courtney showed him plenty of signs of her insecurity and her volatility, and there's several camera footages of it. It's going to be interesting how it plays out in court as a result of her stabbing him. Now remember, she had two DWIs. They got arrested in Vegas for a potential DV. So she's been involved with the law several times in relationship to Christian. But there's no background story or criminal background story with Christian. Courtney was the breadwinner, and obviously she felt she had the power to talk to him any kind of way, and he needed to accept it. But she was insecure, dating this brother and thinking that he was cheating on her. Well, she should have left and he should have left. And then after she allegedly committed this crime, the police handled it very gingerly. If the roles would have been reversed and Christian had stabbed her and killed her, he would have got sent to jail with no bond right away. They didn't do that. They interviewed her When she called the police, she couldn't even give the address, and it took them 4 months to arrest her. She subsequently went to Hawaii doing this investigation before they finally, 4 months later, decided to charge her. And then they extradited her from Hawaii back to Miami, Dade County. And she had $1 million in the bank. So she was the breadwinner, and she was going to let him know. I don't think that she looked at him as a boyfriend. I think she looked at him as some kind of servant and an item that she was supposed to control. And he was not recognizing the 5 signs and symptoms, and he was not utilizing his 5 senses that God has given him, that I talk about all the time. You have to have a PhD in common sense when you're navigating your way through this world, especially in today's time. There's so much coming at you, young people, that you have to make sense of it. You have to have calmness and stillness to think and work your way through issues, conflict resolution, mediation, or just remove yourself from the entire scenario. He never did that. So there's accountability and responsibility on both parts. He stayed too long and ended up dead. She stayed too long and is accused of murder. And they both had their entire lives in front of them. We're talking about people 27 years old. They have another 50 or 60 or 70 years to live. And now all of this has been disrupted, and it has destroyed both families. Subsequently, when he went to the hospital and he died, his mother didn't even know that he was deceased. The morgue had called his parents to inform them on what they wanted to do with his organs, and his mother was not even aware that he had died. That's another interesting saga with the Florida law enforcement folks. They did finally arrest her and arraign her. They bring her in. Well, when it first took place, they brought her in for questioning for 3.5 hours. And she talked. She was worried about her dogs. She wanted to speak to her dad. She just wanted to know if Christian was alive. But there was an arrogance and a hubris to her on how she even handled the interrogation. Nobody goes to jail for being quiet. Everybody goes to jail for talking too much. This young lady talked for 3.5 hours to the authorities, and one of the detectives had a homicide jacket on that she recognized, and she even asked him about it. So she talked and talked and talked, which leads to her arrogance, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, especially after the recent scenario that you saw with Jonathan Majors running from his girlfriend, and he still got convicted for 2 misdemeanors against her, and she didn't get charged with anything. This young lady may beat this case, even though there's corroborating evidence that she didn't throw a knife. She actually penetrated him and stabbed him with her hand. The coroner even said that. There's no evidence that he ever did anything to her. There's multiple evidentiary issues where she had busted his lip. He had his stitches. She hit him in the head with a bottle. There's video coverage of her repeatedly hitting him and using the N-word. It never seems that he was the aggressor. Of course, he was a bigger black man, and she's a smaller, cute, petite white woman. And all of that is going to play out in court. All of it. And we got to see how the jury pool works out. Your case is only as good as your lawyer. So depending on how she lawyers up, she may still beat this, even with all this evidence. But if the roles were reversed and he had done this to her, he would be under the jail. So it's going to be interesting to see what the state of Florida does with this Courtney Clenney, this OnlyFans IG model, and how this turns out. Follow that story with Courtney Clenney and Christian Obumseli or something like that. He went by the nickname of Toby. Let's see how this plays out. But there was a lot of chaos and disruption in that relationship and toxicity. And brothers need to know, even young white men, if you're in a toxic relationship, get out of it. Leave faster than you got in it. Your freedom is the most important thing you need in life. Your space, and to be a spiritual and positive person is what's God-fearing and how you should manifest your truth and your humanity. This has been a Trevor Donald Experience. See you next time.